Hello?
I wonder if anyone was going to come on. We
Yeah.
could just talk to ourselves.
I think we might be.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're BB, as you all know.
I think you all know now. So we didn't. We've decided to go through some myth busters that we come across in our day-to-day profession.
Yeah. So yeah, rather than doing Q&A, I think we.
Well,
only
if
had a
there's any
couple of
questions, then obviously you can
But
put
yeah,
them in the comments.
if there is anything pop up that you want to ask, obviously let us know. But one of the major things that comes up all the time is that you need a partnership agreement, because they think, oh yeah, I've gone into business, I've got a new business partner, I want a partnership agreement between us. And then we get talking and it turns out they've got a limited company.
So what they actually need is a shareholder agreement, because obviously if, you know, say for example there's two shareholders, then it needs to be decided on what happens upon death, if one shareholder wants to leave, etc. So that is laid out in a shareholder agreement. However, a partnership agreement is something very different, and it could even be that two limited companies. Oh, Luke's watching. Hi, Luke. Hale says go to work or do your work. Yeah, so it could be that you've got two limited companies that actually are in partnership together, or it could be two sole traders. And the way they're set up and the way the law works is very, very different. So
if you actually had a partnership agreement rather than a shareholder agreement, it's almost worse than having nothing at all. You've got to get the right agreement for what you need.
And this is why it's important to always get advice rather than just searching, Googling, because if you think you need a partnership agreement and you Google partnership agreement and then you download some really terrible template for a partnership agreement it's not even exactly what you need. So, you know, that's our top tip for that one.
Yeah. Another thing is, again, kind of getting confused between how you're set up as a business. So there is limited companies, there's partnerships which are generally unincorporated, and there's sole traders, which is even below that, where you're just literally in business on your own. And a lot of people come to us again and they say, I'm a sole trader, I'm a single person, I'm not a business as such, so GDPR doesn't apply to me. When actually it does.
Yeah, GDPR will still apply. And actually even dealing with consumers as a sole trader can still apply as well. So if somebody is buying in the course of their business, then they're not classed as a consumer. So there is a difference there. However, we're going to do another live that actually focuses a lot on subcontractors and IR35 and freelancers, because there is lots of misunderstandings in there too.
Another thing linked to GDPR is it doesn't matter anymore because of Brexit, which of course is a load of rubbish, although GDPR is an EU regulation, and Brexit has kind of pulled us out of the EU. It was implemented before, so GDPR was implemented before we came out of the EU, so it's still implemented. But also we've enacted the Data Protection Act 2018, which is the UK's version of Brexit. There are some really minor tweaks to the two, slightly worth checking out. I think we did a blog on it a couple of months ago, so that's available on the website.
But fundamentally it's the same. Data protection has always affected you. Obviously it was just really old, Data Protection Act 1998, and it needed an overhaul with the way the technology has evolved, etc, etc. So it still very much does affect your business.
Then do you want to go for this one you love ranting about?
Yes. So often we hear, especially if you're trying to chase money or you know, something's gone wrong, and we hear clients or you know, prospects suggest that a contract wasn't in place. Now, I think what they mean is that the terms of the contract wasn't in place, or they potentially mean that there was no minimum term to that contract. However, there is always going to be a contract, even if it's done via WhatsApp message, even if it's done via Facebook Messenger or email, that itself will form a contract. It might be that, you haven't tied anybody into a lengthy contract, but you always need to be protecting yourself in the sense of what happens when that relationship ends. You're going to need some kind of termination policies, whether it's 30 days. Otherwise it just gets very, very messy at the end when somebody wants to leave.
Yeah, a lot of people have a very kind of old-fashioned version of a contract in their head. When they hear contract, they hear a 10, 20, 30 page contract that has a written signature at the bottom. They've scribbled their name in the bottom, and it's very old-fashioned. These days, well, it's always been the case in contract law, it's just an offer and acceptance. Any kind of offer and any acceptance is just where that is written down. So as Kerry mentioned, it could be a Facebook message, it could be an email. It's the more information that's in there, generally the better, making sure that everything is protected, whether it's quotes, whether it's payment, whether it's termination. Make sure everything's written out very clearly.
And what's been agreed to be delivered, especially if you're doing sort of a lengthy project, like we see a lot with sort of building a website, for example. It might be that it has different functionalities, different, I'm not very technical like that, but
how many pages?
Yeah,
whether
pages.
It's got a shop.
Exactly, and you just want to be making sure that all what has been agreed has been written down, and what should happen if things start changing as the project develops. Sometimes websites can take a long time to build, especially the more expensive big ones, the big ones that have to do loads of stuff. So, and teething errors and, testing and so forth can take some time. So it is important there that you're actually putting down exactly what has been agreed right from the offset. And then when things might not go quite to plan, you have something to refer back to see exactly what was agreed.
Yeah, I had a contract review this morning where we were going through an agreement that I'd written, and a lot of things we said, well, let's leave it in there. We don't think it's likely to happen, but make sure everything's written down as a worst case scenario. I think we kind of mostly touched on it, but we also get a lot of people saying we don't tie people into contracts, and what they mean is actually there is still a contract in place. We've still written their T's and C's, and they've still tied them into a contract. It just might not be a 5-year term, so there's just not a minimum term on it. Some people like to do monthly rolling, some people like to do yearly rollings, or as I say, sometimes people even do 5-year rolling, but so once it gets to the end of that initial period, it'll roll in again for that same period that happened the first time. And so it's just depending on how long that rolling. You're
still going to need, like we were saying, you're still going to need a notice of termination. You're going to, just to be able to understand, where you're at with payments, so you're not making any refunds or you're not over delivering.
Making sure you've wrapped everything up, passed everything over, done a handover. Might even be you on a longer period to be able to, if they're your biggest client, to be able to replace them and find some more money. Because if it's your biggest client that disappears one day, that's a lot of money disappeared straight away.
Yep.
So yeah, I think just about.
Good. Good.
Yeah. I don't think we've had any comments, any questions or anything pop up. So yeah, I think we'll just wrap it up there.
Yeah, and the next time we will do a more structured one on
We'll focus on subcontracting, IR35, freelancers, a little bit around intellectual property as well, maybe. So yeah, cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye.